morning, everyone. My name is Alyssa Stone. I'm the Senior Director of Programs and Community Engagement here at the Mechanics Institute, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our fine establishment for this very special, intimate evening with one of our fabulous trustees, Arnold Grisham, in conversation with our Chief Executive Officer, Kathy Bella. We're very excited for this wonderful conversation. Before we get going, and I pass it over to Kathy, who will introduce our special guest, I wanted to just give a brief introduction about Mechanics Institute. Who is here for the very first time? I know there's lots of new faces in the room. Welcome. And who are some of our members in the room? Thank you, members. Love to see it. Mechanics Institute was founded in 1854. We are a cultural center, historical landmark, gorgeous multi-story accessible general interest library, world-renowned chess club, and events center. We do upwards of 10 to 15 events per week here at Mechanics Institute. There's always something going on that will pique your interest. We have book groups, writers groups, chess classes and tournaments, author talks like this evening, film series, concerts, and much, much more. I hope you'll check us out by visiting milibrary.org to learn more about how you can engage with our community and consider joining us as a member here at Mechanics Institute. I'd love to highlight a couple of our upcoming events that I hope you'll come and consider checking out. Tomorrow evening, we start our March Cinema-Lit film series. We have women screenwriters and directors on women's lives. Tomorrow we start with The Piano, a very exciting film. And then next Friday, March 8th, we have an evening tour. So if you're less familiar with our space, please join us for one of our evening tours, both on evenings on some Fridays and every Wednesday at noon. And we'll, of course, follow with Cinema Lit on March 8th with the film Julie and Julia. Also celebrating Women's History Month, next Thursday, March 7th, we have our Power and Progress of Women's Voices panel in collaboration with the Women's National Book Association. We have a fantastic set of 5 authors who are joining us. So we have lots going on here at Mechanics Institute. Please visit milibrary.org to learn more. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our CEO, Kathy Bella, who will be in conversation with Arnold this evening. Please give them a warm Mechanics Institute welcome.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to interview Arnold for this very special book. And I want to tell you a little bit about both him and this terrific piece that he's put together called Making a Way Out of No Way. Making a Way Out of No Way is Arnold's first book, a memoir, though he is currently outlining ideas for his next writing project. He shared with us. We had a Zoom call together earlier this week, so I know he's busy at work doing that as well. He also recently became president and CEO of Gateway Bank in Oakland, a community-based bank. And he and his wife Paulina, who is in the audience, Paulina, there you are, reside here in the Greater Bay Area. We're very pleased to have Arnold as a member of our board of trustees, as Alyssa alluded to, here at Mechanics Institute, and he also serves on the program and chess committee, chairing the latter of the two. So we're very lucky to have him in all of those roles on a regular basis to advance the mission of our terrific organization. My story is not a single story, but a series of connected narratives woven together into one life. Arnold shares in the book. And isn't that what life is? A series of connected narratives. And I know you'll enjoy reading not only about the trajectory of Arnold's life, but the reflections he's made along the way and his philosophy about what living life to the fullest really means. There's factual information and there's a lot of philosophical information in here, and I know he's going to share that during our conversation tonight. Making a Way of No Way is a unique and inspiring success story that is both authentic and philosophical. It details the life and experiences of a child born to a working-class black family in Chicago in the 1940s and all that entailed. His family and the neighborhood within which he grew up helped a young Arnold to become, against all odds, a graduate of DePaul University and an MBA in the field of finance. Arnold's career in banking is a testament to his courage and commitment to breaking through racial barriers and redefining possibilities for those who would follow. He's been an inspiring example as one of the first Black executive vice presidents at Wells Fargo Bank and one of the very few Black senior executives in the country running a major financial institution's corporate and institutional banking business. Arnold also was one of the country's first banking executives to create and run multicultural community banks. The book tells about the personal as well. His upbringing, the influence of his mother and his grandmother, the courtship and marriage and building of a life with his former wife, Jane. They were married for 50 years and she unfortunately passed from cancer a number of years ago. And the personal story is also one of renewal, meeting and marrying his current partner in life, Dr. Paulina Rosavan, and the sharing of the adventures that they enjoy together on their life path. We'll also learn about Arnold's hobbies, specifically his appreciation for and collection and donation of African-American literature, much of which is now housed at the DePaul University John T. Richardson Library. So thank you for being with us tonight, Arnold, and let's get to the conversation. And we look forward to opening up that conversation to Q&A from the audience later in the program. Shuffling some papers here. So Arnold wanted to start tonight with a reading. So we'd like to give you an opportunity. I know you have a couple that you're going to do throughout our conversation, and he's going to start with one that's particularly meaningful to him.
I'll start with, first off, I'd just like to thank Paulina, my bride, for joining me on this journey. I convinced her 5 years ago to be my bride. I think I must have caught her at a weak moment, but lucky for me. And so thank you for continuing to be on the journey. We both have parallel journeys together that we're going through. And so what I wanted to introduce, I have to figure it out.
Yeah,
and that's I'm actually going to start with the epilogue. I had an editor, and when he read my book, he said, "You have to something saying, what is this whole? What does it mean? It's all the 150 pages that you've written." And so he calls me to write an epilogue, and he's like, "My life has been a study in making a way out of no way. I made a way out of no way when my father lost his job, and I had to figure out how to complete my education. I made a way out of no way by getting to DePaul University BS and MBA that gave me the confidence and credentials to become one of the first generation of African-American business executives to enter an unwelcoming and unfriendly world. I made a way out of no way when I was stopped at every turn by institutional racism in 1970 Chicago as I tried to navigate a banking career and moved to California with Wells Fargo. I made a way out of no way as my family adjusted to the increased cost of living in California as we worked to create a better life for ourselves. I made a way out of no way as I navigated through my imposter syndrome and survivor guilt as Wells Fargo had more confidence in my abilities than I did. I made a way out of no way by starting a bank and saving another bank from failing and thereby creating opportunities for others and myself. I made a way out of no way as my family suffered through losing the glue that held us together in the loss of Jane. I made a way out of no way as I redoubled my efforts in being of service to others as I dealt with new survivor guilt and outliving Jane. And finally, I made a way out of no way in marrying Paulina, who's given me new purpose and who has enriched my life through academic and personal journey to help others. Because what's past is prologue, I'm confident that if necessary, I can continue to make a way out of no way because my journey continues. And it makes me proud to see how that journey, that way, has been passed on. My 19-year-old, 20-year-old now, granddaughter, who seemingly, as she came out of the womb, was wise beyond her years, has been a driven and focused person. She's now enrolled at UCLA, and recently she said to me, before reading my epilogue, "Can I tell you a secret, Grandpa? At first I just had a will, but I didn't see a way. Then I willed myself into a way, and now there is a way. Where there's a will, there's a way." Bailey Howard.
Thank you, Arnold. That's great. So let's start a little bit with those early days in Chicago. And here's one place we have some things in common. I also grew up in a working class family. I was the first in my extended family to ever go to college, and I went on to grad school as well. So I could really, it's always great when you read a memoir and you can relate and see that you're sharing a path with someone else. And between college and grad school, I moved to Chicago with a good friend who was going to grad school at the University of Chicago. And we lived in Hyde Park on the south side. And I worked for the Chicago Urban League on the west side of the projects. So I kept relating to your story as I was reading about your family of origin and the path that you moved down and what it was like as you did that. So can you share a little bit about your mother's influence, because she was certainly very, very critical in your upbringing and brought opportunities to you and was such a great support, and some of the challenges you had. I know you had some health challenges early on in life. There were other challenges in your neighborhood and so on, as well as support. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. My mother, her job was that she put magazines in the coast, and she made $80 a week. And my father was a shipping clerk, and he made $120 a week. And we lived in 2- and 3-story walk-ups. And but we felt like we were doing okay.
Yeah.
Everybody was pretty similar. In fact, John Tony Lynch, sitting right there, grew up in Chicago. Well, I say he grew up in Chicago, literally blocks from where I grew up, and had a similar experience. I think his dad was a public servant. Was he a policeman?
He was a police officer.
Right.
Yes.
But my mother took me she would take me to the public library. Back then, the public library had free movies. And you would sit on folding chairs, and there would be a projector, and in my mind's eye, I could still see scenes from some of those movies. Well, for $80 a week, she took me on vacations. I had no idea how she would manage to do that, but we would take the train to different places and what have you. But and she was big on reading. She'd put me on her lap and she would read me a story, and then I'd say, Mom, read it again. And I mean, there were times when I didn't know how to read. I was too young, but I heard her read the story so many times that I could actually read it myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But she was really big on reading. In fact, she didn't care if I read comic books. As far as she was concerned, as long as you're reading something, it was okay for her. So that was my mom. I was very, very fortunate. And I was also fortunate to go to a high school that was only 2 or 3 years old, and everybody was shiny, and everybody had high teachers and students. Everybody had high expectations, and so that was my story. And Tony and I think we moved out to California. We actually didn't know each other in Chicago, but moved out to California at similar times and had relatives that lived literally blocks away from each other.
Great.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
And so that love of reading, and also I'm curious about when you started to learn to play chess. When did those things happen?
I think I was probably 11, 12 years old. It was right when Bobby Fischer was in his heyday, and we couldn't wait for the latest chess game to be played.
Yeah.
And then you could read about the game. You could read each move that would be detailed in the Chicago Tribune. So we used to sit on the stoop and a stoop is like this. It's a kind of a concrete next to stairs where you could sit on the stoop, and you could have a large silver pot that we used to call back then, and a bag of potato chips, and we would play chess all day long.
Great. That's great. So there you are, you're in Chicago, you're growing up with your mom, and you're in the neighborhood, and you're reading, and you're learning chess, and then you're moving toward college. You end up at DePaul University. Tell us a little bit about that, and what was that like, just at that time with your family, and what your opportunities were beforehand? How easy was that? What were some most important memories of that time in your life?
Well, I ended up going to DePaul because I really loved math. and I was very good at math, and the Chicago Public Schools had a program for seniors that you could go to junior college and take college courses, and then colleges like DePaul would have seminars for math students. So I just happened to go to one of their seminars for high school students, and I felt that it fit me. So I ended up going to DePaul, and DePaul was one of two institutions that really changed my life. The priests at DePaul really looked out after us, and I really didn't realize how much we were being taken care of until and it was in my 50s when I was asked to be a trustee at DePaul. And that's when I learned that the mission of DePaul was to educate kids from working class families in the Chicago area. And for me, I was a solid C student. I wasn't a C plus student, I was a solid C student. And my friends, my friends were starting to apply to grad school, they were getting accepted in various disciplines in grad school. And I had the nerve to go to the registrar's office and say that I'd like to be admitted to the MBA program. And they didn't even blink. They let me in the MBA program, and getting an MBA from DePaul just absolutely set the stage and changed my life. And then, to have an opportunity to go back and be a trustee was also a really, really big deal.
And how has that institution changed since you were there? What are the main ways you had the ability to look at it through different vantage points? What do you think is different about it now?
It was a much smaller institution when I was there. Now, it's the largest Catholic university in the country. I think it has something like 27,000 students. It has, back then when I was a trustee, it had revenues, I think, of $500 or $600 million. But DePaul never had a large endowment. It used its cash flow to give scholarships to kids. And I'll never forget, it was one year, my junior year, my father became ill. My folks couldn't, the tuition was $450 a semester. And DePaul changed to a quarter system. And then it was $450 a quarter. And I said, where am I going to get this extra $450?
Right.
And we took out our first national defense loans. And nobody gave us national defense loans, except maybe these two guys right here. And the national defense loan was that the interest rate was 3%, and you didn't start paying it back until 7 years after you graduated, and then you made quarterly $45 payments until you paid it off. And it was so advantageous that we couldn't wait for the bill to come.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that gives opportunities to people that never would have been able to go otherwise, and that's what it's all about. That's great. Okay, so there you are, you graduated with your MBA, and then walk the group through a little bit of your career trajectory in the banking industry, how you decided on banking, and it was very interesting, I thought, to read about your time at Wells Fargo, and then as you moved through your career and what that was like.
Well, even though I had an MBA, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a friend who was in banking, in commercial banking, where you're dealing with companies. And he said, you should come and do this job, because from that perch, you see all these different industries. And then you can choose one, to plant your flag. And so I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, if you're not still trying to figure it out, something's wrong, right? We want to keep growing and changing and learning our whole lives. That's great. As a part of all of that, it seemed to me that education, your love of it, and the opportunities that it gave you also turned into your philosophy about giving back. For example, you turned to Joe Marshall's organization, Alive and Free, and another place where we connect because they were a longtime client of mine. I was their consultant, and they have done such tremendous work. I think they're in their 37th year, and they have graduated so many young people from college and given them a chance when they wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. And as I understand through the book, that's a big part of how you turned that life experience around and then gave back in a similar manner. So maybe chatting a little bit about your thoughts on education and what it provided for you and how you came to make that turn.
Yeah, I've always believed that you need to pay it forward. If you've been blessed, you need to figure out how you're going to use some of the resources that you've been able to gather to help others. And I also believe that you have to have purpose. One of the things, when you get to be my age, you see a lot of bad things that happen to people. And some of those bad things I've seen happen to people it's been when they've retired. And I think of my father's generation. Work was so hard, and healthcare wasn't as good when they turned 65. They needed to retire. But for us, people lived to be 90 or 100.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do with your life?
Right.
And I just see so many people that they stop. They go to Hawaii, they sit on the big beach or what have you, and 6 months later, they can't put on their clothes. They've completely lost it. And I think sometimes when you stop, your body says, "Okay, we're done."
Right.
And so I think it's so important that we keep active, that we have purpose.
Absolutely. Wise words.
Yeah, that we have purpose, and it was Martin Luther King that said one of the most important questions in life is, what are we doing for others?
Thank you, Arnold. I know you wanted to do a second reading, and you alluded to it when you first started here about imposter syndrome, and you told us a little story on the Zoom call earlier this week.
Yes. Well, for me, I can distill my life down into 2 journeys. One is kind of the outward journey, working for Wells Fargo, getting to DePaul, and what have you. And then the other journey is the inward journey. And one of those inward journeys is dealing with what I guess I call the imposter syndrome. My father was the kind of black sheep of his family, and he kind of transferred that to us, and I spent a lot of my life saying, "Dad, we're okay," but I really, and they also say that some people that have imposter syndrome are very successful because they work like dogs, because they're so worried about being found out and discovered. So one day I was a senior vice president at DePaul, and I was going across the bridge, and my boss said to me, "Grisham, where are you? You're supposed to be in my office." And I said, "I'm coming." And he said, the directors at Wells Fargo have elected you an executive vice president. Get your butt in my office. And so I said to myself, I didn't ask for that. And I said, I don't think I'm doing a particularly good job as a senior vice president. And I said, I'm going to be found out now. I'm going to be found out. They're going to fire me. I'm going to have to pull the kids out of private schools. We're going to have to sell the house and get a trailer and move back to Chicago. And I pulled, this is where it really was crazy. I pulled into the Barcadero line, and I wrapped my car around the post. That's how freaked out I was about getting promoted. So the other syndrome is, I can't remember what I called it, imposter syndrome was one, and I can't even do it now. But anyway, so fighting the inward journey for me has been much tougher than any outward journey.
Yeah, it was very interesting and very impressive to see all that. That takes work to do that and some of it's painful, and some of it's very reflective and energizing. But it takes courage, and it takes a lot of work to do the inward journey.
The other I could think of was what they call survivor guilt.
Yes.
And the neighborhood where Tony and I grew up, we knew people that were smarter than us, and we knew people that worked harder than us, but they didn't get out. And so you ask yourself why, but and then you feel this responsibility that that if I've been allowed to do more, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to be doing to make this a better place? So the survivor guilt and imposter syndrome are part of the inward journey that I've had to deal with. and still do it. You know, I'm 77 years old, but I feel like, you know, in fact, Walter Johnson, a very close friend of mine, who, you know, we've been through good times and we've been through tough times. And he reminds me that the biblical passage, you know, 10 is, and we're past the promise. And so what are we supposed to be doing with our lives to make this a better place?
Very important. Thank you. Family, a huge thing. We talked about the family of origin, your life, and that you built with Jane, and your kids, and the family times that you had, the photographs that are in your book about spending time with your kids and your grandchildren, how important that was, and what an anchor it was as well. And then children, grandchildren, and moving on to building a wonderful new life with your new wife. Talk about family theme and what it's been like in terms of the importance in your life.
Yeah, it's you know, family is everything, and I've really been blessed to have a great family, and to have a second bite at the apple and have a new wife, and for the two of us to, her journey is different from my journey, but we've been able to learn from each other's journey, and it's sometimes our place kind of looks like an academic place, because, you know, she's got books, I got books, you know, we're talking about, she'll ask me about some issue that she's dealing with, I ask her about some issue that I'm dealing with, and it's really been a big deal. Also, it's been great to have great friends. There's a guy sitting in the back by the name of David Lickman, who there have been times in my life where he has thrown me a lifeline and didn't have to do it, and he did. And so we've been back and forth in each other's lives. We know a lot of each other's secrets, and it's been great to have him. And then there's a younger version sitting next to him that's kind of been a mentee of mine, Damian Philbotts. I mean, he's so young. I think I have ties that are older than he is.
Well, those long-standing, multi-decade friendships also very, very key in your story, life story.
And in fact, Walter is one of the people that I highlighted in my book in terms of people that there have been times when, you know, we've got kids, and, you know, you're trying to do the right thing with kids, and we've kind of leaned on each other. We've leaned on each other because at different junctures, we have different issues. And it's been really great to be able to work together. I remember the first time we worked together was our kids were going to a Catholic grammar school, and the school only had so much money, so we put together a group of parents, and we were buying books and stuff, and that was the first time that we worked together, and since then we worked together on different things.
Glad everyone could be here to support you tonight. That's just terrific.
I do have my attorney here too, by the way.
That's good. Always want them close by. I'm going to ask just you talk a little bit about one more piece, and then we'll kind of open it up for some questions. Deciding to write a memoir. So we were talking again on a Zoom call earlier this week about how it's becoming ever more popular to write a memoir, especially for many at a certain stage in their lives, right? And it's about different things for different people. Some of it's about putting down on paper your life journey so that it helps you to reflect and take stock of your life. For some, it's something that can be left to family members so that you've got that written history. And others to really do something like you did, which is to publish a book that can be shared for a number of reasons. So say a little bit about what motivated you to write a memoir, and what did you learn along the way?
Well, first thing you have to do is define success. What is success? What does success mean in this endeavor? And I made a decision that if no one read the book other than my kids, it would be a success. And there's a saying that if you don't tell your story, somebody else will, and you may not like their version. So that's what caused me to really want to do this. And yeah, I think those are the two reasons.
That's great,
Yeah.
thank you, Arnold. And I know on each table here, one other piece that Arnold was talking about when we spoke earlier in the week is that he learned quite a lot about writing a memoir, and he's got some tips, and we're sharing some of that information, and it's also available in other formats as well.
Mhm.
So thank you for doing that.
Sure. And just one thing I'd like to share about that essay is that trying to remember the name of the author who talked about the 10,000 hour rule. That every successful athlete.
Malcolm Gladwell.
That's right. And he said that you need to spend at least 10,000 hours doing whatever your craft is if you want to become good at it. And for writers, the 10,000 hours is reading. And I think it's probably 20,000 hours of reading. People that are good writers, they have read everything, and they just have this reservoir of stuff, knowledge, and what have you, that they can draw upon, when they write. The other thing that I've learned that makes a good writer is you have to love rewriting.
Yeah.
And great writers, they can't wait to get to the rewriting part of it, and they just want to get their thoughts down on paper so they can get to rewriting. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll write a passage, they'll come back a few hours later, a few days later, a few weeks later, and they'll look at what they've written, and they'll see a better way to write what they've written. And I fallen in love with rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
And also the other issue when becoming a writer is that you can't have a deadline. It's finished whenever it's finished. And I mean, sometimes the writers get carried away and they never finish.
Right.
Searching for the perfect paragraph.
Lots of potential PhDs that have been in that situation, that's for sure. Yeah. Let's open things up to the audience. Do we have some questions out there of Arnold?
And we'll come around with the microphone for anyone who does have a question.
My name is Ted. I'm a member, a chess member. Thank you for sharing your story and for sharing your time with us. I almost don't feel like I have the privilege because I didn't read the book, not yet. However, I just have to wonder, for someone with the responsibility that you hold, what is it that you fear? And then what do you do about it?
Sure. Yeah, and I have an answer, actually. I fear that when I stand in front of St. Peter or whoever, and he asked me, what did you do with the life that was given to me? Whatever I say is going to be inadequate. And I hope that I still get a pass.
Other questions?
How did you like my answer?
Arnold, thanks for your kind words. You like to rewrite. If you could rewrite your life, would you do anything differently?
No, because my outward journey, I have been just tremendously blessed with my outward journey. And again, it's been about the inward journey that's been hard for me. And I'll give you an example of how my outward journey has been blessed. My first wife passed, and we sold a bank, and I was lost, absolutely lost. And David, he saw me from a distance, and he invited me to become a senior consultant at First Republic Bank, and it gave me something to do. And that's an example of my life. I have been, my worst day has not been a bad day.
Thank you. Others?
I'll ask a question. You have played with finance and you're playing with writing. How do each serve one another?
I guess I looked at my life, well, with banking, and I had another profession that I love to hear someone else's story. And when you can get another person to talk about their story, they'll tell you, you learn a lot. And I guess with writing, so much comes to me from earlier life that I guess it's similar in that regard. And that's what I find I love about writing. I love hearing someone else's story, and I love kind of reconnecting with stories in the past and getting them to come forward. Maybe that makes sense.
Arthur, I was really interested to hear you talking about the inner journey, having devoted myself to that since my retirement. And I was curious, at what point in your life did you recognize that there was an inner journey and perhaps really put some effort into developing?
And that's when I started reading Howard Thurman.
Oh.
Okay? And Howard Thurman, he has a trilogy of essays, and one of them is called The Inward Journey. And so that was when I first started focusing on the inward journey. And for those of you that may not know, Howard Thurman is probably the second most famous person to graduate from Morehouse College behind Martin Luther King. And he's a well-known theologian who's written lots of books. There are Howard Thurman classes and School of Theology, but he talks about the inward journey.
I have a question. Well, first of all, I want to say you did good. I just would like you to talk about this transformation that I've seen in you. When I met you, you were retired. And recently, a few months ago, you became CEO of the bank. And there's been this transformation, this resurgence of energy. And the bank doors don't open until 8:30. He's up at 5:30 or 6, fully dressed at 7, with nowhere to go. So, can you talk about this renewal that you feel? What's going on in your head?
Well, I think, and I think David is also a good person to talk about this, and that's that to have a big life, and then for whatever reason, it stops. You really appreciate what you had even more, and then to be blessed to resume that life makes you really appreciate it even more. And for me, when I have purpose and I have complicated problems that are difficult to solve, I feel energized. And I feel sharper. I feel mentally sharper having complicated problems that are difficult to solve. You want to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, now how am I going to make a point A to point B? That's not a problem. It's an opportunity. And one of the things that I've learned in writing is that sometimes I'm trying to express something, and I learn to walk away. And when you walk away, then your mind is still working on the problem. You go to sleep, your mind is still working on the problem, and then the solution comes to you. So I feel that I'm more in tune. I'm more in tune to what the universe brings me. And part of it has been marrying Paulina, because most of you probably don't know that besides being a nursing professor, she's written 5 books on poetry, and she's never tried to write one poem. She never, before coming to her, she never owned a poetry book, never read poetry, and she has fully formed poems that come to her. And it's because somehow I believe she's become open enough that this comes to her. And so I've learned in my journey to try to be more open, because the more open I am, the more it comes to me. And I feel like, at 77, you don't, well, even at 37, none of us know how much time we have. And I feel like there's so much to do.
Absolutely.
There's just so much to do. And I think that being married to somebody who is an intuit helps to make you more open to all that the universe brings.
Very well said, thank you. Any other questions?
Sure.
One thing I'd like your thoughts on is you talked about the 10,000-hour rule, and as somebody who's been banking all your life, it sounds like you become really good at what you're doing because you've stayed with it. On the other hand, a lot of people, when they retire and have an encore career, they go into something totally different. I know for myself, as somebody who's worked in 2 different fields, that each different field I've gone into has allowed me to develop different parts of myself. And so I want to know your thoughts about staying with the same thing or doing different things with one's life.
It's really a struggle. I really struggle. Because I've got a great banking job, but I have stuff that's coming to me from a writing standpoint, and I go back and forth between the two. And I like to spend more time with one than the other, but I don't want to let the other go. And so yeah, it's but that's to have that situation is an unbelievable blessing. To have 2 things that you're trying to decide which one do I want to focus on at this moment. And I just feel like I'm living my best years.
Great way to feel.
I just wanted to thank you so much for talking about a new life at your age, because as I approach 80, I've been thinking, new things are happening, and I'm thinking, how can this be? And you just told me how it can be.
Any other questions before we close tonight?
And Paulina, can I say what her career is? She has taken up acting. Taking acting classes and what have you. So, I just feel like I'm bombarded in my family, bombarded with all this new stuff, and just trying to keep all in focus and what have you. And there's a young man in the back of the room. Are you 42 yet?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and he has a lot that.
Yeah, you're talking to this.
And he's a big talent that has a lot of stuff on his plate, can do a lot of things. It's been interesting to live vicariously through all of his opportunities.
Arnold, you're well known in our fraternity, Sigma Pi Phi, for mentoring and bringing in a lot of younger people. And you talk a lot about ways to help others. And I just wanted to make that comment that a lot of the younger people in our organization, they look up to Arnold in a huge way. And a lot of it is relationships. And I know for a fact that one of the keys to your business success is relationships. And the question that I have, if you had to name 3 mentors that were truly pivotal in your life and career, is that something you're willing to do right now? Maybe make a brief comment on why?
It's hard because, part of the way I've been blessed is that a number of people have shown up at a critical time, a critical juncture. I can name people at DePaul, I can name people at Wells Fargo, I can name people in our community that when I came to California, the community that we lived in, I was embraced by so many people. And the two of you are two people that have embraced me. So I mean, because when you take the, as you know, Tony, when you take the 2,000-mile trip, it's you basically take the trip and you burn the boat. It's not easy to go back and to be accepted. And I think it's a community that we live in. I think medium-sized towns bring people in more than. I was in New York, I don't think I did, or Atlanta, I might not have had the same experience. But there was something about our community at that time that was a very, very accepting. Tony and I belong to a fraternity where you meet people from different disciplines. And what happens to a lot of people, especially in this community, this technology-driven community, is that a lot of times people are siloed. They know other engineers, they know other computer scientists and what have you. But it's hard to meet people outside of your silo. And we've been blessed because we've been able to meet people that are doing things that are very different than what we grew up doing.
Very enriching. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your experience. If you were back in the South Side of Chicago talking to a young person who's hoping to make their way out, what guidance would you offer?
I would tell them that if you grow up without a lot of resources, you do need to get some sort of career, that's going to pay the rent, put food on the table, what have you. But I would tell them that the game today is trying to become an entrepreneur. Technology makes it easier to become an entrepreneur. You don't need server racks and what have you. Google and Microsoft can bring you all the technology that you need. I remember when I got involved in the executive search business, video conferences. You pay $200 on both sides for a video conference. Today, you can have a video conference on your phone. So there is. If you have the right idea, the cost of being an entrepreneur is a lot less than it used to be. And I think that if you figure out how to be an entrepreneur, you create more independence for your family. Some of us have been fortunate enough to make a career out of corporate America, but if you can somehow become your own boss, that's what I would encourage young people to always be on the lookout. What is that idea that you might be able to turn into a business? And you don't need that much money to do it these days. So, and in fact, there's the saying that we typically don't trust someone that hasn't failed in something. And so you need to get that first failure out of the way anyway. And figure out how to be your own boss. That's what I would tell someone.
Thank you, Arnold. All right, I think that concludes. Thank you, Arnold, for sharing his wisdom and his book with us. There will be copies in the back. Alyssa will tell you a little bit more about it. And thank you all for being with us tonight. We appreciate you coming out in the wind and the rain. And it's just lovely to have you here. I hope you'll consider coming back for other programs here at Mechanics Institute and perhaps even becoming a member if you aren't one already. So again, thank you. Yeah.
If you have time, take the tour. I mean, this place was started in 1854. I think it's the oldest private library in the country. And just seeing the brass railings downstairs, just go right around the corner here and you can see the chess room, which is really a dramatic place to see, knowing that there have been chess masters and grandmasters in here. It's an extraordinary place, a hidden jewel in the city.
Thank you.
A big, wonderful thank you for Arnold Grisham, trustee, author, inspirer. And thank you to our CEO, Catherine Bella, for being our moderator and interviewer this evening. Thank you all so much for joining us here at Mechanics Institute. Please, if you haven't already, visit Andy, who will be helping us to sell Arnold's books in the back. We have both hard copy and paperback. And we would love to invite folks, if you'd like to do a quick tour, I'll help guide y'all out or guide y'all out and then back up to this room if you would like a quick tour of Mechanics Institute. Thank you. Please join us again and we'll see you next time.